What if I told you that the most important moment in the NBA this year had nothing to do with a championship game, a blockbuster trade, or a record-breaking performance? What if I told you it came down to a single sentence, spoken quietly, reportedly behind closed doors, by a 22-year-old kid who almost never involves himself in public drama? Think about that for a second. We live in an era where every NBA player has a social media presence, a brand, a carefully managed public image. Everybody has an opinion and everybody wants the world to hear it. But Victor Wembanyama is different. He's the kind of player who lets his game do the talking. He's methodical, focused, and almost eerily calm for someone his age. He rarely jumps into controversy. He almost never fires back at critics. And he almost never, takes shots at other players publicly. So when reports came out that Wembanyama had finally had enough, that he had reportedly reached his absolute limit, the entire basketball world stopped and paid attention. 'Cause if Victor Wembanyama is speaking up, something genuinely serious must have happened. And once you hear what triggered it, and once you understand the bigger story behind all of this, I think you'll agree that this goes far deeper than just another NBA beef. This is about respect. It's about history. And it's about what kind of legacy we choose to honor in this league. Let's get into it.
Because the game is different. Like, I want people to understand, and our fans to understand, that playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020.
To understand this whole situation, we have to go back to the comment that started everything. LeBron James, four-time NBA champion, four-time league MVP, widely considered one of the greatest basketball players to ever live, sat down on his podcast called Mind the Game alongside Tyrese Halliburton. And in the middle of what seemed like a casual basketball conversation, LeBron made a claim that immediately set off alarm bells across the entire NBA community. He said, and I want you to really let this land, that playing 82 games during the 1980s and 1990s was simply not the same level of physical and mental demand as playing 82 games in today's NBA. His argument was that modern basketball is more complex, that the spacing is more advanced, that today's athletes are bigger, faster, more skilled, and operating within offensive and defensive systems that are infinitely more sophisticated than anything that existed in the 80s or 90s. On the surface, some people heard that and nodded along. There's a version of that argument that has some merit. The game has genuinely evolved.
The so-called king needs to put some respect.
Now here's the problem. The way LeBron framed it didn't just come across as a basketball evolution argument, came across as a dismissal. Sounded like he was saying that the legends who built this game, the Michael Jordans, the Magic Johnsons, the Larry Birds, the Hakeem Olajuwons, were operating in a somehow easier environment. And the basketball world was not having it. Fans immediately flooded social media. Analysts pulled out data and old game footage. And what they found directly challenged LeBron's narrative. Basketball historians and analysts pointed out that the pace of play during seasons like 1986 and 1987 was actually faster, yes faster, than significant stretches of today's NBA. Teams were sprinting up and down the floor on every single possession. There was hard contact on every drive. Defenders were allowed to be physical in ways that simply are not permitted in today's game. And then fans brought up the lifestyle comparison, which only made things louder. Today's NBA superstars travel on private jets. They stay in 5-star hotels. They have personal medical staffs, specialized nutritionists, cryotherapy chambers, sleep specialists, and million-dollar recovery programs designed specifically to keep their bodies performing at peak levels night after night. Players from the 80s and 90s? They flew commercial economy class sometimes. They stayed in normal hotels. They ate whatever was available. They had trainers, sure, but nothing remotely close to what modern athletes have access to today. And those old Converse and Nike sneakers? Fans started bringing that up too. Some of those shoes had barely any ankle support compared to today's custom-engineered, biomechanically optimized basketball footwear. Yet those players played through everything. They pushed through injuries that modern players would sit out for weeks to recover from. They played 82 games, full 82 games, without the concept of load management ever crossing their minds. So when LeBron said that era was less demanding, a lot of people felt like he was rewriting history to make his own career look more impressive by comparison. And that perception spread fast. Very fast. Comment sections exploded. Sports shows turned it into a full debate. The episode reportedly became one of the most controversial podcast episodes connected to the NBA that year. Even longtime LeBron supporters found themselves struggling to defend that particular statement.
And this guy is like 4 inches taller, and he's athletic. It can shoot threes. I mean, it is a beautiful thing.
What happened next was exactly what you'd expect in today's internet era. Clip went viral almost instantly. Within hours, the basketball community had split into 2 very defined camps. On one side, you had LeBron defenders. They argued that today's athletes really are more skilled, that modern defenses are more complex, that the game has evolved in ways that genuinely require more from players mentally and physically. On the other side, you had people who felt LeBron had crossed a clear line. To them, dismissing the difficulty of previous eras felt like he was trying to chip away at the legacies of players who came before him, players who, by the way, built the very foundation that made the NBA the multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon it is today. Critics started pointing out something that felt a little uncomfortable for LeBron's argument: the concept of load management. Modern superstars regularly sit out games for rest. Back-to-backs are managed carefully. Teams strategically rest their stars to keep them fresh for the playoffs. A lot of fans online started connecting the dots and asking, is this why LeBron is arguing that today's game is harder? To justify the sit-outs? To reframe load management as a logical response to a more demanding era? That theory spread fast, and it only deepened the division. Then something even more interesting started happening. People close to the league began reporting that younger NBA players were also uncomfortable with LeBron's comments. This wasn't just retired legends feeling disrespected. Active players, guys who grew up idolizing Jordan and Magic and Shaq, felt like the conversation was unfair to the icons they had studied and looked up to. And one name kept coming up in those conversations: Victor Wembanyama.
I said this to you and the guy. I think Wemby is the first perfect big man that's.
Here's what you need to understand about Victor Wembanyama before we go any further. This is not a player who lives for drama. This is not a guy who posts fiery takes on social media, who gets into public spats with other stars, or who uses controversy to keep himself in the news cycle. Victor Wembanyama is, by almost every account from people who know him, one of the most focused and internally driven players in the entire league. He's calm. He's methodical. He rarely says anything publicly that he hasn't thought through carefully. So when reports started emerging that Wemby had finally had enough, that he was genuinely frustrated and ready to say something, people around the NBA took notice. According to people close to the situation, seeing LeBron casually downplay the greatness of legends like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and the other all-time greats was something Wemby genuinely could not let go of. Not because of ego or rivalry, but because he actually cares about those players. He grew up studying them. He built his game around what they created. And reportedly, the frustration came to a head behind closed doors first. People around the Spurs organization were reportedly talking about one specific comment Wemby made, a comment that spread quickly through NBA circles because of how direct and blunt it was for someone usually so measured. He reportedly said,
"He's changing how we're looking at the post position. Victor is bringing a different level of guard / small forward to."
7 words. 7 words, and the entire NBA community erupted. 'Cause think about what just happened here. This isn't some veteran player with an axe to grind. This isn't a retired legend defending his era. This is a 22-year-old kid, born in 2004, who grew up watching the players LeBron seemed to be dismissing on that podcast. And that kid decided enough was enough. The reaction online was immediate and massive. Fans who had been frustrated by LeBron's comments suddenly felt like someone had finally said what they were all thinking. Former players started weighing in. Media personalities started breaking it down. Sports shows ran the story for days. And here's what made it even more powerful. Unlike a lot of NBA drama, this wasn't about money or contracts or who's the better player on the court. This was about principle. This was about respect for basketball history. Victor Wembanyama, the most dominant big man in today's NBA, was standing up and saying that the legends who came before him deserve better than to have their era casually dismissed. And the basketball world responded accordingly.
It's a different game now. It's a totally different game. And, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because.
Now, if you want to fully understand why Victor responded the way he did, you have to look at what shaped him as a basketball player and as a person. 'Cause this didn't come out of nowhere. People close to Wembanyama say he is one of the most obsessive students of basketball history in the entire modern NBA. Not just someone who watches highlights. We're talking about a player who has spent hundreds of hours studying the footwork, the post technique, the defensive positioning, and the mental approach of the all-time legends. He's reportedly watched extensive Michael Jordan footage, not just the highlights but the way Jordan studied opponents, the way he adjusted mid-game, the way he competed with a ferocity that went beyond physical talent. He studied Hakeem Olajuwon's footwork so deeply that you can literally see Hakeem's influence in the way Wemby operates around the basket today. Those spin moves, those drop steps, that combination of grace and physicality in the post, that is a direct tribute to studying old-school greatness. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook. Tim Duncan's fundamental soundness and mechanical precision. Wemby has absorbed all of it. And a huge part of who shaped him is Greg Popovich. Coach Pop has spent decades being one of the most outspoken critics of certain modern NBA trends. He has openly talked about how the game is becoming too dependent on three-point shooting. He's said repeatedly that physical defense is disappearing from the sport. He's been very vocal about believing that the old-school values, toughness, discipline, footwork, and playing through adversity, are what truly separate the legends from just the stars. Those lessons, by all accounts, are deeply embedded in how Victor Wembanyama thinks about basketball. And when you watch him play, it's impossible to miss. He does not float around the perimeter hunting three-pointers when things get difficult. He does not flail dramatically looking for foul calls when defenders contest his shots. He does not play the modern basketball style of manipulating contact to earn free throws. Instead, he attacks the paint directly. He posts up. He hits mid-range fadeaways that look like they belong in a 1990s playoff game. He contests shots at the rim with a consistency and intelligence that reminds analysts of the great defensive big men from previous eras. Fans literally joke, affectionately, that watching Wemby is like watching Tim Duncan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar combined with the athleticism of a modern small forward. And that playing style is itself a message. It's proof, delivered every single night on the court, that the fundamentals LeBron seemed to dismiss are not outdated. They are not relics from an easier era. They are the most powerful tools in basketball when executed at the highest level.
I've always said LeBron on my list, he's number 7 all time. I got Wilt, Kareem, Bill Russell, Michael and Oscar. I got Kobe 6 and LeBron.
And here's where the whole situation became something truly special. Because Wemby didn't just speak up for the legends. The legends started speaking up for him right back. Charles Barkley, one of the most passionate and outspoken voices in basketball media, went on one of his classic rants and used Victor Wembanyama as a direct counter to the entire "today's NBA is harder" argument.